Hey everybody, it's Moose here, and I'm back again with another interview. I'm here with Book Nice 10. He is the founder and creator of ACBA, known as Articulated Comic Book Art. And this is such a huge, huge honor for you to be here. So I really appreciate you being here on the show, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, of course. So I guess going over our first question is, and also, since we're here, I have a few fan questions. So we're going to start off with a fan question right here from All That Jazz 20. And he asks about, he says here, hey Boo, big fan of yours. What is some tips for beginners for ACBA?
Well, I pretty much always give the same advice when it comes to getting started in display art and ACBA. One of the main things that you need is just a lot of patience, man. It takes a lot of patience.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to be a guru overnight, so you got to really take your time. It is a painstaking process to become good at this and then to eventually become great. But I think when you're starting out, it's probably good to join the ACBA group on Facebook. As a matter of fact, I guess I could kind of mention this now because by the time this comes out, I think we will have officially announced this, but we've had some sister groups on Facebook for quite some time. So we have Dial Structure, which is pretty much it's primarily for building dioramas and such. We have another group called Plastic and Paint, which is sort of like the lounge of ACBA. It's kind of like a hangout spot. You could find out information about pre-orders and things going up and comics and movies and everything related to pop culture. Is kind of a place where all of the kind of top artists, I guess, hang out. And then we have a fairly new group called ACBA The Grind, which is basically where we're gonna be doing some intense tutoring for people trying to come up and trying to hone their skills and trying to be better at display art. So I would say that you should probably be in some of those groups and obviously join the main group as well. But, basically you should act as a sponge early on and just try to absorb as much game as you can, as much information as you can, and then, apply that to your own skill set. And it takes time, but I would say come join us in the groups on Facebook and just learn.
All right, great. I definitely, if those pages are up and everything, I'll make sure to put links to them in the description so people can look at those pages and be able to join. But that sounds great. And also, I think I definitely think patience is the key for sure when doing any form of action figure photography. And I also believe that when it comes to creating creating that image, there's a lot more that people don't. I personally haven't done a lot of ACBA, but I can tell that there's a lot more to it than just taking a picture. You gotta get the right lighting, make sure everything's in the right place, make sure the figure pose looks natural. I hope that sounds about right, but yeah. So
definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all about toy photography is you basically putting together a little miniature movie set for the most part. So you're doing everything on your own. You're doing the lighting, you're doing the staging, you're putting your actors into place, and you're telling your own story. You're the editor, you're the producer, you're the director, you're everything.
Right.
That's basically what it comes down. Little miniature productions for every single solitary shoot.
Right. So an ACBA has gotten to the point where even Hasbro themselves have acknowledged ACBA at some few points in time. So I guess one of my own questions is essentially, and I don't know if you've been open about this, but essentially, what made you what made you want to create ACBA in the first place? Because it's gotten such a huge fan base. Many people have done forms of ACBA, and so I guess the big question, and a lot of people have asked this and asking this question, is what made ACBA what it is today?
Well, I'm a lifelong collector. I've been collecting action figures since I was, 8 or 9 years old, and even as a really young kid, I was into kind of setting up my figures and these elaborate displays. Basically, I can remember me and my brother used to have these like huge like battles with our GI Joes, and he would get an hour to set up his side, and I set up my side, and we would go like strike for strike. It was almost like a three-dimensional like battleship game or something like that with action figures. So in those days, in the late 80s, early 90s, or through the 80s, through the early 90s, the way that they marketed towards the kids for toys for action figures was pretty crazy. Those old GI Joe commercials had them doing pretty much big setups with dioramas and those big vehicles and stuff like that. And that even at that young age, that kind of like sparked something in me and made me really interested in displaying. I could remember thinking that hopefully things will progress and figures will get better in terms of articulation. Even then, I was still always wanting more articulation on the figures. And I said to myself, hey, listen, once this reaches the next level of sculpting and articulation and design on figures, we're going to be able to really put together some cool displays. And I continued to collect. I guess through junior high school, through high school, I kind of fell back a little bit. But in early 2000 or 2001, when that Spider-Man Classics line launched right before Marvel Legends, I started getting back into collecting, getting back into reading comic books and stuff. And then once the Marvel Legends line dropped, that was it. That just kind of sparked something in me. I started collecting heavy again. I started doing my own thing, displaying in the crib. Nothing really as detailed as it is today, I guess. But I also started searching for other people who were into displaying their figures in a way, in a dynamic way, or a way similar to what I had been doing for the year or so prior. And I discovered YouTube. I discovered Shartimus's channel, and I saw his early Spider-Man display with all of his Marvel Legends kind of like tacked up on the wall and the ceiling, and the way that he was posing the figures was very similar to what I was doing, dynamic and really just trying to replicate things from the comic books. And then I also stumbled upon Tony DeBina's channel, who had an X-Men display up. That's probably one of the most popular videos of just showing like a display. A raw display on YouTube even to this day, and I'm like, oh, this is it. These are the guys that I'm looking forward to hang with, to know. And I joined YouTube sometime after that, and I think I put up my first video maybe I want to say 6 or 8 months after Shartimus had come on YouTube. And there was about maybe 20 or 30 of us at the time. Well, I guess early on it wasn't even that many. Maybe it was 10 or 15 dudes that were really into Marvel Legends on YouTube, sharing their collections, sharing little poses and displays, and sharing haul videos. And originally that was what sparked the Marvel Legends community, and it grew to about maybe 25 to 30, maybe 50 people strong at some point, and we would have a little contests and displaying, and at some point we just started calling our setups art, and then I kind of coined the term articulated art, and the community was just going strong. It was really just about posing and setting up things. This is before a lot of dioramas and stuff were introduced, but sometime after that, I coined the term articulated comic book art to really give us an identity and to really name this particular form of displaying, and introduce the cutouts into the displays too, to really make things look like, three-dimensional comic book art, basically. And the name just caught fire. At some point, everybody was just calling their setups ACBA, and I don't know.
I guess going on to, I definitely think with what you were saying about with ACBA, you answered that question perfectly. I think getting all that those behind the scenes stuff and knowing about what inspired you and who inspired you particularly really gives me a better perspective and understanding. Like you said, like Charlemagne Prime, for example. Like I didn't really start collecting up until 20. I mean, I bought figures, and I remember I bought figures like around like the little bit during the Toy Biz days, going straight into Hasbro. But it was mainly I collected some Marvel. I bought some Marvel Legends. I ran the Spider-Man Classics wave, the X-Men Classics wave, some DC Universe Classics as well. But mainly, I didn't really start collecting until 2012, around the time when the Avengers movie came out. Yeah, so I that's when I first started collecting for real, and I found some stuff through ACBA back then, and then I also found stuff like Artemis Prime and people like Sean Long. I really feel like those people have really inspired me to make my collection grow and be where it is today. And I think a ton of other people out there that are listening can really resonate with that, because I think you've inspired so many people, like YouTubers and photographers alike, to do what they're doing right now. And so I just personally I thank you for doing what you're doing, because I wouldn't be the collector I am today. And it also inspired me to do stop motion, a lot of your photography and a lot of that kind of stuff, because I love doing stop motion, like making sure everything looks the way it is, making sure that my posing and everything is correct. So yeah, I definitely have looked up to you in that regard.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. You know what's funny? Over the years, so many people have asked me to try my hand at stop motion. It's definitely something that is on the action figure photography, toy photography, ACBA bucket list for sure. To just throw my hat into the ring with that for sure. So I got much respect for anybody who is good at stop motion. It is something that requires a hell of a lot of patience for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. I feel like with the stop motion animation, I like same thing with photography. Like I've taken some photography classes, stuff like that. Like doing that, it's always patience. It's always making sure you have to have it in order to create art. Any form of art. And I feel like ACBA is such an amazing art form. Like a lot more people, if they don't know about it, I feel like should know about it and learn to appreciate it, because some people might get turned off by it because of action figures, but that's the fun part, is that they're taking a figure and making it seem alive, making it seem like it's more than just a figure. It's something that you can use your imagination to create something with it. And that's something I really like about it.
Yeah, no doubt. It's I've always said that ACBA is like the culmination of a lot of different things just kind of mixed together. It's a potluck. It's a lot of different people from different artistic backgrounds. You have traditional photographers who actually just got into collecting because they thought it would be cool to photograph toys. You know what I mean? You have just collectors that have never done any photography that learned from the traditional photographers. And you got sketch artists that was like, you know what, I wouldn't mind trying to create one of my sketches in a three-dimensional display. And you got painters and sculptors and all of these different people that have come together in this one place, which is the ACBA group, and everybody's sharing their tips and tricks and tactics, and it's a wonderful environment for learning and for picking up game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was actually speaking of which, what kind of leads into a fan question. Because when talking about getting comes to photography and getting the perfect shot, getting the shot that you feel like that truly represents what you're trying to create. Somebody asked Comic Monster Studios. He wants to know what was it like taking your very first shot, making your very first photo, and some people might not even know what it is. So like myself, but what was that taking that first ACBA photo like?
Well, when we were on YouTube, everything was pretty much in the video format. So, we were videotaping most of the setups at that time. So everything had to be sound for you to move through the setup with the video. There was no like tricks or little angles and stuff. Everything had to be angled perfectly for you to move through your setup on video. So once we moved over to Facebook, it was a challenge to do photography and to do still photography. It changed the game. I do think that it enhanced it for sure, but it was a learning curve for a lot of us, and a lot of people from those early days didn't actually persevere through the change to it being more primarily photography based. And a lot of those people kind of just fell back after a while. So I say all of that to say that everybody was fucking terrible at first. So so my first shots were just awful. I mean, again, the patience. It took me at least, I want to say at least 2 or 3 years to actually be good or decent at taking pictures. It didn't happen overnight for anyone. And everybody who was making that transition learned together, and we just kind of piggybacked off of each other, and it's progressed to where it is now, where it's so, the competition is so there's so much competition in it. I mean, it's good friendly competition, but there's so much of it that people are leveling up all the time. Like all the time you see people just kind of like find their niche and get their stride, and overnight, almost it seems like it's overnight that they level up. But I made the analogy before, like everybody's Goku, when it comes to ACBA. You no matter what level you reach, there's always that next tier that you could get to, so it seems like it's just an endless power-ups,
Right. Yeah, I get that. I feel like when you gotta always start somewhere, and you always gotta build your way up to where you want to be. You like you said, not everybody's gonna be a guru overnight, and I feel like if you going in doing your best that you can, and just kind of work with what you have, but also taking advice from people, and whenever you're like, okay, you can improve on this and you can improve on that, but like you said, it's all about knowing what you are capable of, and you gotta be able to have to learn to have the expectation for yourself, and also be like, work your way up to it. So I feel,
I'm glad you mentioned advice, because that is a huge part of the ACBA group, is that open, honest critique and advice, and that is really what actually drives the machine and helps people really to continuously level up, is getting open, honest feedback. We in an age right now where it's a lot of like participation trophies, and the internet has kind of softened us a bit in a lot of areas, but we try to stay we try to keep that kind of hard outer edge in the group, and as they say, steel sharpens steel. So that's how we kind of conduct things when it comes to the group. We don't sugarcoat anything. We don't give out participation trophies. We don't coddle the members. We help you improve.
Right. Yeah, I get that. I feel like being honest and being like just straightforward and to the point, and like you said, not sugarcoating, can help. It can help the community grow and can help a certain person grow. You know, when it comes to the same thing comes to stop motion too. My first few stop motions I did, even the ones I did like a year or two ago, were awful or weren't very good. And I feel like even now, even when I'm testing out my animation and everything, I'm improving. I'm improving, and I'm becoming a better animator. And I feel like a lot of people, and even when I did drawings, and I feel like even over time, I'm becoming a better artist. And so yeah, it's all about taking criticism, even though it might be harsh. Taking that criticism can be crucial to help you become a better photographer, a better artist, a better animator, whatever it is. Just
no doubt, whatever it is, you're right. You gotta be able to take that advice on whatever the medium is. For certain.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not. I say that we. It's a tried and tested method. It's not. I wouldn't even use the term harsh how it is in a group. Sometimes a lot of people get that. They get that. There are people who have come and gone in a group that are not really accustomed to anybody being open and honest with them about their stuff. They may be only used to getting praise, and sometimes people create this false perception of the group where everybody is just being rude and like nasty and and just kind of shitting on your work, and that's not how it is. We definitely promote the sandwich method. You start off with a positive, you give the critique, and you end with a negative. As long as you can pass it along in that way, then everybody can feel good and grow at the same time.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. Which going on with another fan question. I also, before I get to the fan question, I just want to say that over the years, as somebody who's an artist myself, who's done art and everything, like I mentioned before, just my advice to people is like the same. Just don't really see that criticism as a form of an attack, right? See it as like it is criticism, and you're gonna have people that might be shitting on your work, but don't those are people that you can just not really pay attention to. But like people, like you said, most people in community, in the ACBA community, are trying to help one another out. They're like lifting each other up in a way. They're like, here, this is what I've learned. I made the same mistake. Here's how you can do better. This is how you can do it the way I might be able to do it, and how you can be a better photographer. So I definitely can do agree with you in the sense where that's what I also like about the community too, is that the community is strong in that sense where everybody is helping one another out.
Agreed, definitely.
Yeah, so going on to the fan question, this is from War TV 14, and he says he wants to know what the best small lights to use for photography.
I didn't hear that.
Oh, okay, sorry. I said War TV 14. He wanted to know what some of the best lights or small lights to use for photography.
Well, there's levels. There's levels to every aspect of your display game. There are definitely things that are more high end, like Lume Cubes, which I've worked with before and which I really like. But honestly, you can work with some of the most basic sort of caveman stuff and still produce some very high quality photos. So oftentimes I use just normal regular desk lamps, with white light, and you need a lot of light though, because even once again we talking about a little miniature movie set, so even some of the darkest scenes in movies have tons of lights,
Mm-hmm.
So you need a bunch of lights, different sizes, and make sure the necks on the lights are articulated so you can move the lights around where you need them to be. You need some way to kind of elevate them to have the lights above your setup. Sometimes you need them down below. It's really it's like alchemy. It's just a certain mixture, and it really all depends on you and your space and what you have going on. But literally, you could spend like $10 to $14 per light on just some regular desk lamps, and as long as you have white light, you can do just about anything that you may have seen me do, because I don't use too many expensive lights. So same thing goes with your camera. You can start off with some basic, pretty nice point and shoot camera up to a really expensive DSLR. I just recently, maybe over the past like year and a half, started working with a new, more powerful camera. Before that, I was using like a Sony, I forget what it was called. It was a good camera. It's a really good camera. And that's the other thing too, is knowing your equipment. That goes to everything: your lights, your dioramas, your camera. You'll get a new camera and won't know everything about that camera for years. It takes quite some time to even figure out all the settings and figure out your go-to settings. So again, this all comes back to the main point of patience. But yeah, just to answer the question directly, desk lamps. You can get some regular desk lamps, white light, and just make sure you get several, and make sure when you're setting up your lights, there is some sort of symmetry to it. You light the back, the front, the top, in some sort of symmetrical way, so everything is lit. And then you, if you need to adjust any settings in your camera, like the contrast or exposure or whatever, then you can.
Right. Okay. So that actually really helps me, because I want to work better with lighting. Lighting is very crucial in making the whole thing pop and stand out. And I know some people, like, would you say the same thing, like, for LEDs as well, like LED kind of lights, or?
Oh yeah, definitely. For more accents too. I don't just use the white lights. I do have some colored lights for different, like rim lighting and different accents. I do utilize some colored tissue paper. Sometimes you can change the whole hue and the whole like temperature of your shot with just simple tissue paper over the white light. There's a lot of little tricks and things you can do. The polyester towards the front of your camera lens could make things look smoky. If you don't want to work with any like smoke in a can, any aerosol atmosphere or anything like that, or you could work with that as well. There's a lot of different little tricks and things you can use to set the mood and to change the mood and the tone of a photo. But yes, little LEDs, little small finger lights. You can light muzzle flare effects with little small finger lights, and a lot of different things. I mean, sometimes I can't. Sometimes I don't have enough hands. I can't take the shot without actually holding a light in a certain position where I need it and using the time on the camera. You got to do what you got to do. It's a lot of takes a lot of cunning. It's just it's a painstaking process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I do definitely agree with that statement for sure. I definitely, I think the thing for lighting for me is making sure the light either isn't like close to non-existent, or either finding that ratio, right? Finding that ratio of the lighting not being too harsh and not like overpowering the shot, and or else the lighting being very kind of faded, where it's like it's not showing off, where it's like being like making the shot look too dark or anything like that. So I guess finding that balance of knowing where you want everything to be positioned. So I definitely can agree with that. And also, speaking of everything being positioned, this is just one of my questions, is since you're a collector of many different lines, what have to be some of the figures that you'd say in your collection that you've used for ACBA has to be your favorite figures you've done photography with?
Well, Spider-Man is definitely one of my favorite characters. So anything kind of Spider-Man related from any of the lines that I consider good, then I photographed a lot. I like to photograph a lot of the Mezco stuff because it just looks very real. You don't have to worry about any exposed joints or anything like that. Not that that really bothers me too much, but it's just a different sort of feel with some of those figures. It's a different feel between imports and domestic figures. But Spider-Man is definitely one of my go-to guys. And just Marvel in general is what I prefer over DC. But I do enjoy some of the more brooding kind of shots with like a Batman or something like that. It just all depends. Some seedy kind of Gotham City shots. I do enjoy that as well. But
Yeah.
I oftentimes like to break out stuff that is rarely used as well too, and kind of dig into crates and bring something up that somebody hasn't seen in a long time, or maybe have never owned, because we got new collectors coming into the world of toy photography every day. We got people or kids or teenagers who are like 15 or 16 right now that have never seen some of the older Marvel Legends figures, or have never held them, have never got to mess around with certain figures. So for me to dig in the crate sometimes and bring those figures out, I think is fun, and that's why this retro Spider-Man video was so fun for me, and it's kind of near and dear to my heart already, because I got to break out a lot of old figures, and I could see that the reception was that a lot of people just haven't seen those figures before and haven't seen me really talk about them. So
yeah, one of my first Spider-Man figures I remember ever getting was the Marvel Legends first appearance Spider-Man from the Sentinel wave.
Yeah, that was a terrible figure.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah,
it's not. It's definitely not the best figure, but I still have it, and it's just because it was one of the first. Because as a kid, I'm like, I had never seen that much articulation before. Like you mentioned, I still have it because it's still like it's such a close figure to me, even though it's not the best figure. It's something that it's that figure in particular, that and the Toy Biz Black Panther. I would say those two, and those two characters also are very close to Spider-Man, Black Panther, for Marvel at least, are really close to me, and I feel like those figures kind of like helped me launch my love for figures, even though I wasn't really collecting that much around the age around 11. It was like it made me appreciate figures as a whole. So I definitely I tried my best not to like break them or whatever, even though I would occasionally I would have some mishaps where I would break a figure, but I think that happens. But yeah, so I think that one of my favorite figures that for stop motion recently I really like to work with is the Mezco Netflix Punisher. That figure is great.
Yeah, that's I think that photographs really nicely. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess right here, going on with another fan question, is has to be from. Okay, here we go. From All That Jazz 420 or 420. It says, what is the best place to look for effects as accessories to use in a shot? So like what would have to be some effects or accessories that you could say would be good for photography?
I'll tell you one thing. It's been a very long arduous kind of task of collecting different effects to use in toy photography over the years. And honestly, for your effects game to be up and for you to have a lot to choose from, you would have had to been collecting for quite some time. It's taken me a long time to amass a good collection of effects, but more recently, I guess Tamashi has done some really cool effects that are some of my go-to things, like the explosion effects, the lightning, the fire, stuff like that. Obviously, the key thing about, or one of the key things about ACBA is the introduction of cutouts into the display. So that is another way for you to add effects and sound effects and visual effects into your display, is with cutouts. So that's always great. We've seen people over the years go from very small, just kind of word bubbles and sounds, to way more extravagant cutouts of whole figures and explosions and backdrops that are cutouts. And so, it's just about your creativity and your imagination if you don't have the ability to backtrack and buy some of those actual physical effects. But I do see a lot of companies recognizing that displaying is like a really is becoming a really huge pastime, and so they are catering to a lot of collectors and display artists and starting to put out more effects with their figures and sold separately. So I think that it's going in the right direction for sure, and that as the next couple of years progress, you'll see way more accessory packs and what have you. The other thing that I feel like ACBA has opened up a lane for is for independent people to just do their own thing artistically and bring that stuff to you and sell their stuff. It opened up a lane for a lot of independent people to make money in this little niche market. So there's a lot of people that actually make effects, blood effects, and effects for Goku's aura and all of these different things. So there's always somebody out there on the market making a custom head sculpt or hands or whatever the case may be. This is what ACBA has opened up the door for sure.
Oh yeah, I agree with that. I definitely think that with in terms of having like an independent, it's helping out people who have like small businesses to who want to like let me start over. I'm so sorry. So when it comes to making effects, I also feel like there's tons of people out there. Like I think I remember see Sharmus Prime. He made his own like ice slide for Iceman at some point. So there's tons of people. Yeah. So I think this should give people, like, even if you are starting out or whatever, I feel like making your own effects can be good. Like I know I've seen a lot of people use cotton balls and like spray painting them or painting them to make it look like Nightcrawler bamfing into a room. So, or using that as smoke, or like there's so many things you can use to create. I think I saw somebody. His name is the Toy Bookie, and Rocco the Great, and he does some DIY stuff, and he talked about using like toothpicks or making stuff, how to make small cigarettes for characters. Like he made like a small cigarette for Jim Gordon, for example. Yeah, so like using stuff like that. I think what it was a paperclip. It was a paperclip, and he's like painting it white and then tipping the ends with like orange or yellow, or whatever, like the end of for a paperclip, and they actually fit in pretty well, like for certain Jim Gordon hands, or when making your own custom Jim Gordon. But so stuff like that, I feel like the thing is like there's so many different ways you can make effects, or like you said, buying from independent creators who make their own blood effects or own effects like that. So yeah, I just say I can agree with you. Just like you said, Tamashii Nations, they make some effects too. So I just say ask around. You can find people that make stuff. Or like, for example, my a friend of mine, she has a 3D printer. I'm gonna commission from her to see if she can make some effects for me, out of her 3D printer. So
yeah, that's been a big 3D printing has been a huge thing too. But also, I forgot to mention that like sometimes you got to look at figures from different lines that you may not collect just for the effects too. So I've done that a lot over the years. Look at different figures. You reminded me when you mentioned the cigarette because the Figma Solid Snake came with like 3 or 4 little cigarettes that I use in displays all the time. Although I did want that figure, I bought the figure because I actually wanted it. But there's always little things like that. The Figma Ted movie, little Ted figure came with a few little props that I like to use a lot. There's a little bong in there. There's a beer bottle. Even you could use Ted himself as just like a teddy bear and some other displays. So, you just got to kind of look. You got to be, savvy about it and just kind of look around.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's just like, that summed it up perfectly. Just look around. Also, like, I feel like keep in mind that when buying effects from other figure lines, maybe you can use that figure if it's like let's say just a random, like if you want to find certain like there's a McFarlane Call of Duty line. I bought some figures out there. I don't really play Call of Duty, but I know I can use those figures for just random henchmen for my other characters to fight, or like there's one for a battering ram that I need for a video for something like that. So it's like you can reuse some of the stuff that you buy, even though you might not think of it. You can be able to be like, okay, I can use this for this shot, or use like you said, like the Figma Snake. Like you bought it for the accessories, but you also bought it because you wanted the figure, because But yeah, so I think I have another fan question here. Is let's see. Oh, okay. So we have a fan question from also from All That Jazz here. He said he wanted to know what has to be your favorite figure, like one of your favorite figures that you've collected over the years.
Well, we know one of my new favorites is definitely this retro wave Spider-Man. A classic favorite figure that I have might be. It's a good question. One figure that I really really like. I like Super Saiyan 3 Goku from SH Figure Arts.
That's a good figure.
I'm thinking about stuff that I just kind of keep on display all the time. And that's one figure. The first SHF Hulkbuster I keep on display. I have the Figma God Hand. All of those figures, I keep those on display all the time. The first, the first Hot Toys figure that I got was, I think it was Deadpool. I don't really keep that figure on display too much, but it's kind of near and dear to my heart because it was the first Hot Toys that I got. And then I also have the Spider-Man Homecoming homemade suit Spider-Man from Hot Toys too, which was a gift, and that's definitely one of my favorite figures. I really like the Synthetic Human from 1000 Toys.
Okay.
That is a really good figure. From Mezco, I definitely like the first Punisher. I mean, all of the Punishers, just kind of being able to mix and match with those, and I guess from Marvel. Well, I did touch on Marvel Legends. A classic Marvel Legends figure that's still very good. I don't know. It's a good question. I'm trying to think of like an old Toy Biz figure that's still really good. You know what? The old Toy Biz Green Goblin is still a very good figure from Marvel Legends, and I'll be taking a closer look at him when I do when I review the retro Green Goblin.
Yeah, I agree with that. That Green Goblin is really good. I don't know if they asked, but one of my favorite recent Hasbro Marvel Legends has to be, because it's currently taken over one of my Captain Americas. It has to be the 80 years Captain America, based on the Alex Ross's art.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you there. All three of those, the big three from that 80th anniversary line, they're all phenomenal figures. Cap,
so
Thor,
good.
and yeah.
Yeah, such phenomenal. Even just like with Thor, I didn't expect for myself to love the Thor as much as I do. Like that Thor is great. Like I love the hammer, the face sculpt, everything. It's just like it's such a great figure. And I'm still on the lookout for that Hulk and Wolverine 2-pack too, because that Hulk looks phenomenal.
Yeah, yep.
Uh, yeah, but I guess going on to a couple of the last couple of questions I have here on my list is so when it comes to doing YouTube and being on the platform for a long period of time, where do you really see your channel going? Because it's like with posting reviews, and reviews are just like getting more bigger and bigger, and the community is growing. What would you have to say for at least for your channel? What has been the biggest benefit or the biggest thing you've learned from doing YouTube?
Um, One of the biggest benefits from doing all of this is meeting people. Meeting that was the aim from the beginning. It was about meeting people that had similar interests. That's really what the drive was at the beginning. I was trying to meet people that were into displaying like I was, and obviously that has totally come to to fruition, and it has come tenfold, 20-fold, 30-fold at this particular point. There are literally thousands of people that I can interact with and just talk shop with and shoot the shit with, and ACBA has become more than just a certain type of display art. It's a brotherhood. It's a fraternity at this particular point. I've met up with collectors, display artists from all over the world, literally, at these different events, and shared meals, and, shared a 6-pack. And so that is special. That is the really attractive thing about this, is just being able to just kind of shoot the shit with people and just connect with people. I mean, yeah, I think that's the big thing. But to answer your question more directly about where I think the channel should go and about YouTube, I didn't. I'm a little behind. Like I said, I came onto YouTube maybe about 5 or 6 months after Shardamus, right? So he's been cultivating his channel ever since then, since the beginning. Basically, he has had a vision for where he wanted his channel to be and what he wanted to be doing, and he wanted to pretty much review figures professionally, and he has pretty much achieved that goal. So his channel has grown exponentially. His channel has grown exponentially, and he is definitely reaping the benefits of all of that hard work. I didn't put in the work as far as reviewing is concerned. I was more just focused on displaying and building a brand outside of YouTube, and I could definitely be credited for starting the display art movement and really bringing popularity to that, and really getting the toy companies to cater to us. But as far as my channel is concerned, it's going to take at least another year of me really putting in some hard work to get caught up to where I actually should be in terms of my channel. I don't feel like my numbers are where they are. I don't know what's up with with the algorithms with YouTube or whatever the case may be, but I have been laser focused over the past year or so in terms of trying to build my my audience up on YouTube and really put more eyes on the brand. And basically, I'm just trying to use these reviews to bring more people into displaying.
Yeah. I feel like I agree with you with one of the benefits is for me for YouTube has been meeting people, and I feel like I started doing the interview stuff way back in 2016, right after I graduated high school, and around when I was turning 18. And I say doing the interviews has been such an amazing thing. Even though doing the stop motion stuff, being part of the stop motion community is great. But I feel like doing the interviews and getting to know these people that I look up to, or that I really enjoy their content, or that have inspired me to do YouTube in the first place, or do stop motion or whatever. I feel like getting to know them on another level. Then that's one of the reasons why I do the interviews, is so people can know more about the person behind the camera, or know more behind the channel, or behind their page, or I feel like that's why I do it, and that's why I feel like that's my biggest benefit. And I feel like with doing interviews like with I did recently, like one of my first interviews I did was with Daredevil 19. Doing it with him was great. Doing this interview now has been phenomenal. I feel like getting to know you has been such a pleasure, and I feel like getting to do this has been a pleasure too, and I will continue to do it. And I feel like just the algorithm's weird. I know sometimes my videos might not make the views as I want them to be, but for right now, I focus on making content that I really enjoy making. So,
no doubt.
Yeah. So I guess going on to my last question here is essentially for your fans, your supporters, your colleagues, anybody that's helped you out over the years. What would you like to say to those people who's been there, who's been there since day one, who people who are just starting to be part of the community? Even if you want to plug something, this is your time to shine, man.
Well, I want to say rest in peace to Mike McBride, who was somebody in the very early days that pushed me to actually trademark the term articulated comic book art, and helped me put together some of the descriptions. He was a writer. He was a guy up from Canada. We never actually met in person, but I felt very close to him, connected to him, and he was pushing me to do all the right things as far as the business is concerned. So I want to say rest in peace to Mike, and I'm forever grateful for his contribution. I want to say I also want to thank my man Ty, who is somebody who has been with me from day one as far as the business is concerned. He is the person that designs the cutouts that we put out for sale. I want to say thanks to my man Roland. He is a person who designs the ACBA flight stands. I just want to thank anybody who has helped push the brand forward in any way, shape, or form. All of the admins from the ACBA group, all of those people have, I've worked with them not just for free in the group as admins, but we've broken bread together on certain projects. I want to thank my man P. I want to thank Slings. I want to thank anybody who has been around from day one that has been a true believer in ACBA and the brand and pushing it forward. I want to say rest in peace to Glenn Webb. He was obviously a big inspiration for a lot of us, especially as it relates to Marvel Legends, which is my favorite toy line. Mm-hmm. I want to say rest in peace to Lou Thug, who was like a early person who was there in the early days of the Marvel Legends community. Somebody, literally the first person that I ever did a trade with offline. He lived in the Bronx, not too far from me, and then I would go hang out with him from time to time before he passed. I'm just want to give thanks. I think I'm in a good springboard place right now to get where I need to be, and I'm gonna just keep pushing forward. Hopefully with some of my day ones, some of the people that have been down with me from day one. And just thank you to everybody who has helped to catapult this forward. And thank you to anybody who is just doing their own thing that might not even be connected to me in any direct way. With them just continuing to do what they do is still beneficial to the overall movement. So,
Yeah, I get you. I feel like for one, I really appreciate you mentioning Glenn Webb, because Glenn Webb was also somebody I looked up to, and I really enjoyed his videos, and I feel like a lot of people, I still miss him. I was honestly just a couple weeks ago just rewatching some of his vids, and so I appreciate mentioning
His passing hit me hard because we were about to meet. He and I were about to meet up for the first time because he was about to come out to New York Comic Con before he passed. So man, that was yeah, man. Glenn was a special dude, man.
Yeah, he was. He truly was such an amazing person, an amazing man in the community, and it also, like, even though I didn't know him personally, it still hit me. You know, it felt like losing, like, almost like a friend. Almost, you know, it was like it hit me. You know, it caught me off guard, and you know, it's still it. But yeah, I doing this. You know, I know he'd probably be. Yeah, but Glenn Webb was truly a treasure in the community for sure.
No doubt.
Yeah, but I just want to thank you, Boog, for joining me. I really do appreciate it. You talking to you and getting to know you has been, like I said, a pleasure. And thank you guys for watching or listening to the video. If you guys want to check out Boog's Instagram, his YouTube page, all that will be in the link description below. If you want to subscribe and check out some of my other stuff, my other interviews, my stop motions, whatever, make sure you subscribe. Also, make sure to check out my Twitter and my Instagram. That'll also be in the link in the description. And Boog, thanks again for joining me. It really was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, man. It was a pleasure joining you. Thanks for having me. And yeah, man, just check out the ACBA Facebook group, the fan page. Check our feature page on Instagram, and absolutely subscribe to my channel. I got a lot of new content coming out every day. And once again, thanks, man. I appreciate you.
Yeah, of course.